Hi friends, this is Callie. Thanks so much for joining me today for a layered stamping floral card using ink to paper products. Ink to paper is an extension of Papertrey ink, and it's a company that's been around forever. I'm sure most of you have heard of them. These products are definitely new to me, so I decided I'd make a card with them. So I have two sets here, the Blooming Thoughts on the left and the Prominent Petals on the right. Because these layered images have lots of detail to them, I'm going to go ahead and die cut first so that I can align everything perfectly. If you do stamping first, there's a high probability that your die cutting is going to be a little bit off. Jennifer McGuire has a wonderful video of tips and tricks on how you can do stamp layering quickly. She uses a sticky mat like I do here. I just store it in the back of my MISTI under my pad. That way whenever I need it, I can just pull it out, remove the carrier sheet, and just use my die cut negative as a template. It really holds everything in place nicely and allows you to use your template or negative piece of paper to inlay your images for easy stamping. So I'm going to start here with the Blooming Thoughts, and I'm going to start with my stems. All of the inks I use today are from Simon Says Stamps, so be sure to check out the coordinating blog post if you are interested in knowing what all the colors are. So I'm starting off here with the stems, and then I will use the biggest blooms on the sets for the layers to stamp my lightest color. And for every layer, I do stamp twice to make sure there is a good impression. At first, these colors show up a little bit more vibrant, and they do lighten as they dry. So I just wanted to point that out as well. On this one, the layers the petals, they get a little bit smaller and smaller with each layer, and that was how I figured out which to do first and last. On the bigger stems, they have 3 layers, and on that smaller stem, there is only 2 layers, so I did those. And now we're going to work on the foliage and the stems. The stems were a little bit tricky to work with, and I ended up not even using them. So I went ahead and stamped the leaves. I did a lighter color, and there wasn't a second layer, but to add dimension, I just inked on a little bit of a darker shade of green at the base of those leaves. And I used a darker shade to intensify the color and to add some 3D dimension or color, if you will. There is an outline image for these flowers, so I went ahead and stamped that last. I like to do that last to get that crisp black outline. I know I haven't mentioned it, but this is the Prominent Petal set. So now we're going to be working on the flowers. There are 2 shades, and I kind of love the blocking of these petals. So it goes from dark to light with the 2 different layers. And so we're going to work on the next shade. And then there are center portions on these flowers that line up nicely to add a deep concentrated color in the center of the flowers. And so I'll be using that with the darker shade. And again, as with the leaves, I wanted to give it a little bit more depth in the center. So I just dabbed on a darker shade of red. So in this case, Magnolia, it's got a deep purple color to it. And I'm just dabbing that on with a finger dauber. It really intensifies that center and gives it a lot of depth. All right, so now we are going to work on our outline, and then that will finish our stamping for this card. I'm going to stamp that outline again in black, and again, I like to do it at the end because I like it to stay crisp. I don't know if it bleeds if you stamp it first, but I've had trouble in the past with other sets bleeding, so that's why I've started doing it this way. So once I'm done stamping, really easy cleanup. There's not much to do. You just remove the negative, put your carrier sheet back on, and then I just, again, store it in the back behind my stamping mat, and that just helps keep everything in place. All right, so for the frame on my card, I'm using this Mix and Matte confetti die. It just creates a cute little scalloped edge, and I wanted to bring interest to it by adding some color with the teeny bikini ink. I've got my blender brush here from Simon Says Stamp, and their new PET tool will help hold my stamp pad in place. I like to use the back of my lid to work that pigment and ink into the bristles of my blending brush before I blend. So I've worked that ink all around the corner and edges of my panel there, and so I can go ahead and adhere my stems down first. I want it to sit in the background and those more prominent petal blooms in the front. And I've got the new Crafty glue stick here from Simon Says Stamp. It was released with the September 2021 card kit, and I'm just testing it out, and I really love it so far. It is a little bit tacky, but it's almost repositional until it dries. So I feel like there's a curing time, so you can move things around if you need to, and that works out really well for me. So for these prominent blooms, I'm going to be using some foam adhesive. Again, I wanted those stems in the background and then the more prominent blooms in the foreground. And so using some foam tape will give it lots of dimension. All right, so once these blooms are down, I'm just going to do the same with the foliage. I'm going to stick it in random places to make my little spray a little bit more full. And I've gone ahead and stamped 2 more leaves off camera because I realized one wasn't going to be enough. And you can cut off the stem to squeeze things in places and tuck them in, so that will just make your blooms look a little bit more full. All right, so for the sentiment, I am using the Perfect Pair set. It's a set of dies and stamps. I love that the dies cut out the larger sentiment words. So I've gone ahead and stamped both sentiments using the darker pink that I used on the prominent petals. And then we're just going to attach that using a T-ruler to help us line everything up. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Craft glue stick again to adhere this panel to a card base. And I did test it out after it dried after a couple of hours, and it does not pull up. So it is pretty permanent once it dries. I hope you enjoyed this card. Thanks so much for stopping by, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.